This is the small town of Goldbach, just to the east of the city of Aschaffenburg in Bavaria. And bordering directly onto Goldbach is Hösbach, a similarly small town you probably haven't heard of. And this is the A3 autobahn. It's one of the most important highways in Germany, starting at the Dutch border and going southeast via Cologne, Frankfurt, Nuremberg and Passau into Austria. And on the way, it passes through both Goldbach and Hösbach, inconveniently close to some residential housing. Roads like this are loud, but there are ways of dealing with that. For this particular section of the A3, engineers hit upon an interesting solution. Put the road in a box. This is the Hösbach autobahn enclosure. Now, to be sure, highway enclosures have long existed in other places, but usually much shorter sections in big cities. This one is in two sections. The eastern section is a little over 700 metres and the western section is just under 1400 metres long, with about 185 metres between them, for a total length of around 2.3 kilometres, roughly a mile and a half. Construction began in 1998 and was completed in 2005. It was originally projected to cost 125 million marks, about 61 million euros. In reality, it cost 90 million euros, but at least it was finished on time. So, was it worth it? The German Taxpayers Federation, a pressure group campaigning for small government and lower taxes, doesn't think so. Why spend so much money on a massive concrete box when simple walls would do the job perfectly adequately? Okay, so let's put this to the test. Stand next to the enclosure and this is what you hear. It certainly works, but how does it compare to the Taxpayers Federation's preferred solution? So it does seem that the enclosure outperforms the wall. Whether it's worth the extra cost, I'll leave you to decide. But the enclosure has something else going for it. Solar panels. Lots of them. They were added in 2009 and in their first 7 years generated 17 gigawatts of electricity. The unverified claim is that this is the world's longest solar energy plant. But there have been some downsides. One of the design features is windows letting in natural light, an obvious energy-saving feature. 1,600 windows, a total of nearly 10,000 square meters of glass. Unfortunately, at certain times of the day in sunny weather, driving through the enclosure subjected drivers to a distracting strobe-like effect, and at least 2 suffered epileptic fits as a result. The clear glass was replaced by translucent glass to give a more diffuse light, and that seems to have solved the problem. Another problem that hasn't been solved is the frequent closures of this section. And for some reason, there seem to be a lot of accidents and a lot of vehicles catching fire. I'm not an expert in highway construction, so I can't say why this is, but it was clearly anticipated by the designers because there are barriers at all access points ready to be closed whenever necessary. And at all the main approaches to this section, there are electronic signs to inform drivers on the enclosure's current status. Sometimes they're a little late updating, which adds a sense of adventure to your daily commute, but it's the thought that counts. If the enclosure is closed, traffic is directed along the B26 federal route. Unfortunately, while the B26 bypasses Goldbach, it goes right through the middle of Hösbach, and things can get pretty congested at the best of times. At the worst of times, the road is closed for several years for a radical upgrade. They're now working on the eastern end, and you'll be pleased to know that the diversion, or detour if you're from North America, goes right past the main entrance to the secondary school campus. It's fair to say that the Hösbach autobahn enclosure has been a bit controversial, with critics calling it the tunnel without a mountain. It's certainly ugly, expensive to build, and expensive to maintain. There's no denying, though, that when it comes to preserving the ears and the sanity of people living right next to the autobahn, it really does succeed spectacularly well. Nevertheless, some have questioned why it merited a big brown sign. Brown road signs are reserved specifically for tourist attractions. And for the record, I did look, and I couldn't find a visitor's centre anywhere. If you don't have a driving licence or a car but want to experience the thrill of driving through the Hösbach autobahn enclosure, the number 33 bus runs once an hour Monday to Friday. Unfortunately, it is a limited stop bus, so the first stop out of Aschaffenburg is a tiny village 15 kilometers away with a long wait for the bus going the other way.